Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lindsay and I bring you content on clean beauty and skincare. If you're not already subscribed, I would love to have you, and if you like this video at any point, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Today's video, I'm going to be spilling all of my secret tips and tricks on how to get a flawless full coverage base using clean beauty, of course. So if you want to see how I got this look, then keep watching. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get started. I already have my brows on, clearly. And the first thing I want to go over for getting a really flawless base is skin prep. I cannot stress how important it is to prep your skin well. If you just don't prep your skin well, your foundation's not going to look good, and so on. You're not going to have a good makeup day. It's also really important to prep your skin for your skin type. So if you have a drier skin, obviously you're going to prep a lot different than someone who has oily skin. Also, just taking care of your skin in general is going to make your makeup look a lot better, because if your skin is healthier looking, your makeup's going to look better, if you know what I'm saying. I'm just going to quickly go over how I prep my skin. My skin is normal. I would say it gets a little oily in the summer and then it can be a little dry in the winter. But other than that, it's pretty normal. I don't get too oily and I don't really get that many dry patches either. So when I prep my skin, it's usually just a little bit of moisture, keep it balanced, keep it nice and plump looking so makeup goes over it very nicely. So first off, what I do is I don't wash my face in the morning. I do cleanse at night, of course, because I'm wearing makeup during the day. But in the morning, I don't feel like I need to cleanse. If my skin feels really dirty, or I've been sweating a lot, or just feels like grimy, then I will just go ahead and wash my face. Really, my biggest skincare tip is just like get to know your skin, and like if it feels dirty, like wash it. If it doesn't feel like you need to cleanse it, then like go ahead, you don't need to cleanse it. But if you don't wash your face in the morning, I do definitely recommend using a toner. This helps to get sort of that layer of dust or grime that may have settled on your face overnight. Of course, it also just balances your skin's pH, tones it up really nice, and it's going to make the rest of your products sink in better. The one that I love is from Indie Lee. This is the CoQ10 toner. Another toner I really love is the Josh Rosebrook Hydrating Accelerator. If you have drier skin, I would definitely recommend that one. If you have pretty normal to oily skin, or you just want more of a balancing toner, I would definitely go the Indie Lee one. Beautiful toner. I usually spray this onto a cotton round and just wipe down my face. And that is that. And then I go ahead and move on to a really lightweight serum. I keep my skincare super simple in the morning. My favorite hydrating serum is the Kypris Antioxidant Dew. It's a really lightweight, milky serum. It goes really well under makeup. So I just do a little bit of that and then just rub it into my skin. It sinks in quickly. Again, it doesn't pill with products that I put with it, which is why I really love it for the morning. Just the perfect lightweight hydrating moisturizer. If you have oily skin, you could actually just use that as your moisturizer and move on to your primer and foundation. But for me, I like to layer up a little bit more. So I will either go in with a cream or oil, or both, depending on how dry my skin is feeling. Today I did do a little bit of the Indie Lee. This is their Daily Vitamin Infusion, which is again just a lightweight facial oil. And then after that, I usually like to go in with a cream to lock it in. Actually have 3 creams I want to mention that I really enjoy. I have one from Osea. This is their Atmosphere Protection Cream. This is great for under makeup, really lightweight, also protects from environmental aggressors, which is really awesome if you live in a city or anywhere where the pollution levels are higher. And then I also like the Indie Lee Daily Skin Nutrition and the Gold Faded MD Vital Boost Moisturizer. All 3 of these are really lightweight and they don't leave any sort of greasy residue on your skin. What I like to mix in with my moisturizer is the Ilia Liquid Light Serum Highlighter. I have the shade Nova. This I put on my chest and my face. It just gives a really gorgeous glow. If you don't want a glowy base, go ahead and just skip that step. But today I did use the Gold Faded MD Vital Boost with this all over my face and chest, just for a little bit of glow. Besides that, the last step of skincare, which is the most important, is sunscreen. I have 2 options on the daily. I like to use the Suntegrity Impeccable Skin Mineral Matte Tinted Coverage. I have the shade Buff. This is tinted a little bit darker than my face, since I usually self-tan, so my face is usually whiter than the rest of my body, which is why I like this one. It's just the sample, but I will be picking up the full size because I love that. And the one that I used today, because I didn't want to use a tinted one to keep my face bare, so I can show you guys how to do foundation without any coverage already is the Ren Clean Screen SPF 30. This one's great. I also have a couple others that I really love. I'll link all of my suggestions below. And of course, if you guys have any questions or want suggestions from me, just go ahead and comment below and I will try my best to get back to you. So let's go ahead and move right along to the application of primers and foundation. So of course, you can start with a primer. If you prefer not to use a primer, that's totally fine. Some days I don't use primer if I don't feel like it. But I have two here that I really enjoy. I'm going to start off with the Ilia True Skin Priming Serum. This is a very liquidy primer that is silicone free and it has a little bit of an iridescence to it. And it kind of just plumps up your skin and makes it really just hydrated and ready for some foundation. So what I like to do is pat this into my skin. I don't rub this in just to prevent any sort of pilling or like mixing with the other products on my face. I kind of just want to let it sink in on its own. I honestly think this primer would work for any skin type since it's so lightweight. It basically just leaves a light tackiness on your face that foundation can really stick to, and kind of just provides a barrier between the foundation and your skin as well. If you have oilier skin, I would totally recommend the 100% Pure Mattifying Primer. I don't have that oily of skin like I mentioned, but I still love this for my T-zone. It's not too drying and it feels exactly like a traditional silicone primer, but without the silicone in it. So both the primers I mentioned are silicone free. And what I like to do with this is again, pat it in the center of my face to prevent pilling, and then if I want it like in my pores more, I can kind of push it in. And with your primers, you're really gonna want to let this sink into your face as well. This one, the 100% pure one, I don't think you need to let it sink in because it is just like a really smoothing primer. But with something like the Ilia True Skin Priming Serum, that's more of a liquid consistency, definitely let it sit in your face. Definitely let it sink into your face for a little bit before moving on to the next step. It's the best way to prevent pilling or just cakiness in general. Moving on to foundation, you guys know my favorite is the Ilia True Skin Serum Foundation. I did not mean for this video to be so Ilia heavy, but they're really honestly just my favorite brand for complexion products. They're one of the very few brands that I found actually work for my skin and stay a long time. So this is my favorite foundation. It's really lightweight, it's aloe based, and it just looks so incredibly skin-like, but gives me a great amount of coverage. If you guys are using a different type of foundation, say like an oil-based foundation like the Kosas Tinted Face Oil, I would be careful of what products you use to prep and put over that, because you know that water and oil don't mix. So if you kind of use something like the Ilia True Skin Priming Serum and then try to put something like the Kosas Tinted Face Oil over that, you might have some like weird problems with it pilling or just not working well together. So if you're using an oil-based foundation, kind of stick to things that you know will work with that foundation. So if I'm using this foundation, the Ilia True Skin one, I will use products like this primer or the mattifying primer that I know will work well with this aloe-based foundation. Then of course you're just going to want to shake it up. I have the shade SF2 if you guys are wondering. So I just start about with 1.5 pumps on the back of my hand. Now my favorite way to use this is to apply it with a brush and then blend it in with a sponge. I find if I go right away in with a sponge, it absorbs so much of the product because it is so liquidy. The sponge kind of just like drinks it up and you're going to lose a lot of product that way. So I'll usually just take a flat paddle foundation brush like this Luxie 510, or a dense blending brush like the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. You can also blend it in with just this brush if you prefer that and not using a sponge, but I like to use this to apply it. So what I do is I work in sections and I start it on the outer edge of my face. If you guys have ever heard that thing, like start the foundation in the center of your face, which is where you have the most amount of like things you need covered, I feel like does not work for me, because for me that's where I get the cakiest. It's where the oil starts to break up the foundation. So I like to keep the least amount of product in the center of my face, and I also feel like, I don't know, that tip I just never understood, doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so once I have it applied to my face, I just go in with my sponge and start to tap it in. You don't want to rub with the sponge, always patting motions. You can really take your time to blend this into the skin. The more you blend it, the more natural it's going to look, the more it's going to really be pushed into your skin. So another tip I have is less is more, and work in layers. You can always build up coverage, but if you go in like on your cheek with a ton of product, that's just not going to end up well. It's going to look cakey. It's not going to spread evenly. You can always build up more coverage, but if you put too much on, it's really hard to sort of come back from that. I just go ahead and move on to my other cheek. And of course, take it down your neck as well. So once I have my cheeks covered is when I don't take any extra product and just use what's on my sponge. And I will take this over my nose and above my lip. Again, like I said, I like to keep the least amount of product in this area because that's where it tends to build up and break up throughout the day. And also, if you plan on doing concealer like right here, you really don't have to put any product there. If you do, again, it's going to be more layers and it's going to look cakier. I don't apply a lot of product to my forehead either, just because I have bangs and you usually can't see my forehead. And also that's where I get a lot of sort of texture, so I don't want to emphasize that by putting a lot of product on there. And also I feel like it just doesn't need that much coverage. Unless you have acne or redness or something on your forehead, usually the forehead, for me at least, stays pretty clear. I feel like my problem areas are usually just around my cheek and my chin where I have some acne and acne scarring. So then I will take whatever's left over and kind of just go over areas I know I want some extra coverage in. By doing this and not going super heavy at first, like I keep saying, it's just gonna look a lot smoother, it's gonna blend easier, and you're just gonna have a better makeup day. So now that we have our first layer of foundation on, I'm gonna zoom you guys in just so you can see how my skin is looking so far with all of those steps that I've done. As you can see, it's looking pretty even. I still have some like scarring showing through and a little bit of redness, but my goal was really just to even out my skin tone because, like I said, you can always add some more coverage. Next, I'm going to apply another layer of this foundation just to show you guys how you can build up a foundation if you need more coverage without it looking cakey. So I'm going to be doing the exact same method. It's just taking it on the brush. And then with this layer, really focus it on where you want the extra coverage. And then we could blend from there. Okay, so now that our foundation is on, I'm not worrying too much about if I need extra coverage in certain places because of a little trick I'm going to show you guys near the end of the video. But our next step is going to be concealer. I'm using the Ilia True Skin Serum Concealer, again because I know it works with the base products I used. I have the shade SC1 Chicory. So personally, I like to use quite a lot of concealer. If you guys don't like doing that, you could just do a little bit on places that you need it. But for me, I kind of like it to brighten up my face. And I usually take a little bit on my chin, but I don't re-dip. I just use whatever's left over after I do my under eyes, just to keep the layers really light. And another little tip I have is if you want more coverage from your concealer, let it sit on your face a little bit. Don't immediately go in to blend it, because since it is so liquidy, your blender is going to sort of soak up a lot of it. Let it sort of thicken, melt in the skin. It's going to blend easier and you're going to get a little bit more coverage out of it. Same thing with the foundation. When you're layering foundation, do one layer, let it sit a little bit, let it dry down, and then go in with the second layer. It's going to build better and you're going to get some more coverage. So that was one layer of the concealer. Another trick I have is if you get a lot of creases under your eyes, put your concealer sort of not directly under your eye and sort of just lower and then work it up, because again, it's gonna make less product in the area, which in the end is gonna look better because there's gonna be less product in there to crease in the first place. So here's the part where I'm most time conscious, is right after I put my concealer. I wanna set it right away because I do get a lot of creases under my eyes. If you do, make sure you're not letting your concealer sit on your face too long. Once it's blended in, go ahead and set it down. Also, before you set it down, if you see some creases already forming, you can use your finger or your sponge and smooth them out and then set it. If you still have creases in your eyes and then you set it with powder, you're basically just locking in the creases, which is not what we're going for here. So I'm gonna use the Ilia Fade Into You finishing powder, really beautiful translucent powder. and I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I will also go ahead and link below some of my other favorite foundations, concealers, and setting powders at some different price points in case you're curious what my favorite affordable options are, since I know Ilia is pretty high-end on the spectrum. So I will link some other options. I'm actually going to bake my under eyes a very little bit. If you have dry skin, definitely skip this step because it's going to accentuate dry patches. I only recommend baking if you have normal to oilier skin. So how I bake is I will take my sponge before I set it and make sure everything is smoothed out, because like I said before, you don't want to be setting in creases. And then I take on a different sponge that's drier than the one I was using. If you use the sponge you're using for foundation, it's kind of just going to act weird with the powder. You could also use a brush to pack this on, really depends on your preference. So I just get a really good amount of powder onto the blender, and then I just press it in to my skin. Personally, I don't like to get any on the side of my nose because that's where I find it looks really dry and cakey. I like to just keep it right under my eye. And then whatever's left over, I kind of press into my eyelid as well. A lot of you guys ask me as well, like if I use an eye primer. Most of the time I do not use an eyeshadow primer. I just do concealer and powder on my lid, and I find that holds up really well. If you guys do want a eye primer, I like the Alima Pure eye primer. I've also heard that Ilia has one. I've never tried that one though, so I can't really give my opinion on it. Now we just let the bake sit. I'm not sure exactly how long you're supposed to leave this on. I usually leave it on for like maybe around 5 minutes. You can leave it on for longer, but I find like 5 minutes is enough that it warms up and sort of really locks down. I also like to take some right on my smile lines because I get creases. Just the way like my face is shaped, that was the creepiest smile. I'm so sorry. But just the way my face is shaped, like I just have folds there that get creased super easily no matter what foundation. So I also like to set those down. Now when that's baking, I usually like to take whatever is left over in my lid and lightly set the rest of my face. Just take a big fluffy brush and make sure not to pat it into your skin. It's not going to disrupt the foundation or take away your coverage. If you have dry skin, you don't really need to set your face. Really just do what works for your skin type that you know looks good on you. Alright, so while I was letting my bake sit, I went ahead and started some eyeshadow. Now I think it's time to brush off this bake. I can kind of tell when it starts to like blend into my skin. You can start to see like your skin coming through basically. So I take a really fluffy brush. This is a Luxie 640. And then what you do is just wipe it away. Okay, so now here's one of my favorite foundation tips. If you're at this point, you have powder on, but you feel like you still want more coverage, or your powder took away your coverage a little bit, I love to go in with a pressed foundation. This is the Alima Pure Satin Matte Pressed Foundation. I use the shade Ginger, which is pretty yellow toned, which I think is really great at canceling out redness. It's also a good tip if you find your foundation is too light, you could grab a darker shade, or if your foundation is too dark, you could grab a lighter shade. Works either way. Or just the tone of your foundation. I like that this is really yellow because if I get a foundation that has more of a pink tone, I can usually change it with this. So what I do is I take this and take a, again, really fluffy brush. I usually use the same one that I use my powder for. And then just get a light layer onto your brush. And then you can just pat it into your skin. I wouldn't suggest really buffing this in. I find that kind of disrupts the other powders I put on. I think this is just the perfect way to add coverage without adding any sort of cakiness. I've tried some powder foundations that just do not look good on the skin, but this one is the best. It doesn't have that weird sort of like shimmer in it that most powder foundations do that just like accentuate texture like crazy. This one's just really finely milled. It just works beautifully. Alright, that is it for our foundation. I'm going to go ahead, throw on some blush, bronzer, and highlight, and I will meet you back here for a wrap up. Okay, so there's actually one last step I like to do after my face makeup is done is drench myself in a setting mist. Currently I'm using the Pixie Glow Mist. Use this if you want more of like a glowy, healthier look to the skin. If you want to keep it matte, I like the Lily Low Setting Mist. It gives you a little bit of glow to the skin, but it keeps everything looking just pretty nice and even. So what I do is just really lay this on my face. Alright guys, that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. Let me know in the comments if you have any foundation tips or if you tried any of the ones that I mentioned in this video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.